it employed a favorite Sumerian linguistic play of double meanings. The atom could mean the one of the earth earthly, the one made of the dark red soil, and the one made of blood. The same relationship between the essential element of living creatures and blood exists in Mesopotamian accounts of man's creation. The hospital, like house where Ea and the mother goddess went to bring man forth, was called the house of Shinti. Most scholars translate this as the house where fates are determined. But the term Shinti clearly stems from the Sumerian Shi.M.D, which, taken syllable by syllable, means breath, wind, life. But Shinti meant, literally, the house where the wind of life is breathed in. This is virtually identical to the biblical statement. Indeed, the Akkadian word employed in Mesopotamia to translate the Sumerian Shi.M.D was Napishtu, the exact parallel of the biblical term Nephesh. And the Nephesh or Napishtu was an elusive something in the blood. While the Old Testament offered only meager clues, Mesopotamian texts were quite explicit on the subject. Not only do they state that blood was required for the mixture of which man was fashioned, they specified that it had to be the blood of a god, divine blood. When the gods decided to create man, their leader announced, "Blood will I amass, bring bones into being," suggesting that the blood be taken from a specific god. "Let primitives be fashioned after his pattern," he said. Selecting the god, out of his blood they fashioned mankind, imposed on it the service, "Let free the gods." It was a work beyond comprehension. According to the epic tale, when gods as men, the gods then called the birth goddess the mother goddess, Ninhursag, and asked her to perform the task while the birth goddess is present. "Let the birth goddess fashion offspring." While the mother of the gods is present, let the birth goddess fashion a Lulu. Let the worker carry the toil of the gods. Let her create a Lulu, a male. Let him bear the yoke. In a parallel Old Babylonian text named Creation of Man, by the mother goddess, the gods call upon the midwife of the gods, then owing Meme, and tell her, "Thou art the mother womb, the one whom mankind can create. Create the Lulu, let him bear the yoke." At this point, the text twin gods as men, and parallel texts turn to a detailed description of the actual creation of man. Accepting the job, the goddess here named Dini, lady, who gives life, spelled out some requirements, including some chemicals bitumens of the Abga, to be used for purification, and the clay of the Abga. Whatever these materials were, Ea had no problem understanding the requirements. Accepting, he said, "I will prepare a purifying bath. Let one god be let from his flesh and blood, let Ninti mix the clay. To shape the man from the mixed clay, some feminine assistance, some pregnancy or childbearing aspects were also needed. Enki offered the services of his own spouse Ninki. My goddess spouse will be the one for labor. 7 goddesses of birth will be near to assist." Following the mixing of the blood and clay, the childbearing phase would complete the bestowal of a divine imprint on the creature. The newborn's fate thou shalt pronounce. Ninki would fix upon it the image of the gods, and what it will be is man. Depictions on Assyrian seals may well have been intended as illustrations for these texts, showing how the mother goddess, her symbol was the cutter of the umbilical cord, and Ea, whose original symbol was the crescent, were preparing the mixtures, reciting the incantations, urging each other to proceed. Figures 151, 152. The involvement of Enki's spouse, Ninki, in the creation of the first successful specimen of man reminds us of the tale of Adap, which we discussed in an earlier chapter. In those days, in those years, the wise one of Ariel, Ea, created him as a model of men. Scholars have surmised that references to Adap as a son of Ea implied that the god loved this human so much that he adopted him. But in the same text, Amy refers to Adap as the human offspring of Enki. It appears that the involvement of Enki's spouse in the process of creating Adap, the model Adam, did create some genealogical relationship between the new man and his god. It was Ninki who was pregnant with Adap. Ninti blessed the new being and presented him to Ea. Some seals show a goddess, flanked by the tree of life and laboratory flasks, holding up a newborn being. The being that was thus produced, which is repeatedly referred to in Mesopotamian texts as a model man or a mold, was apparently the right creature, for the gods then clamored for duplicates. This seemingly unimportant detail, however, throws light not only on the process by which mankind was created, but also on the otherwise conflicting information contained in the Bible. According to the first chapter of Genesis, Elohim created the Adam in his image, in the image of Elohim created he him. Male and female created he them. Chapter 5, which is called the Book of the Genealogies of Adam, states that on the day that Elohim created Adam, in the likeness of Elohim did he make him. Male and female created he them, and he blessed them, and called them Adam, on the very day of their creation. In the same breath, we are told that the deity created, in his likeness and his image, only a single being, the Adam, and an apparent contradiction, that both a male and a female were created simultaneously. The contradiction seems sharper still in the second chapter of Genesis, which specifically reports that the Adam was alone for a while, until the deity put him to sleep and fashioned woman from his rib. The contradiction, which has puzzled scholars and theologians alike, disappears once we realize that the biblical texts were a condensation of the original Sumerian sources. These sources inform us that after trying to fashion a primitive worker by mixing ape-men with animals, the gods concluded that the only mixture that would work would be between ape-men and the Nephilim themselves. After several unsuccessful attempts, a model at Adam was made. There was, at first, only a single Adam. Once Adam proved to be the right creature, he was used as the genetic model or mold for the creation of duplicates, and those duplicates were not only male, but male and female. As we showed earlier, the biblical rib from which woman was fashioned was a play on words, on the Sumerian rib and life, confirming that Eve was made of Adam's life's essence. The Mesopotamian texts provide us with an eyewitness report of the first production of the duplicates of Adam. The instructions of Enki were followed. In the house of Shinti, where the breath of life is blown, and Enki, the mother goddess, and 14 birth goddesses assembled, a god's essence was obtained, the purifying bath prepared. Ea cleaned the clay in her presence, he kept reciting the incantation. The god who purifies the Napish, Ea, spoke up. Seated before her, he was prompting her. After she had recited her incantation, she put her hand out to the clay. We are now privy to the detailed process of man's mass creation. With 14 birth goddesses present, Ninti knit off 14 pieces of clay. 7 she deposited on the right, 7 she deposited on the left. Between them she placed a mold. The Hershi, the cutter of the umbilical cord. It is evident that the birth goddesses were divided into two groups. The wise and learned twice 7 birth goddesses had assembled, the text goes on to explain. Into their wombs the mother goddess deposited the mixed clay. There are hints of a surgical procedure, the removal or shaving off of hair, the readying of a surgical instrument, a cutter. Now there was nothing to do but wait. The birth goddesses were kept together. Ninti sat counting the months. The fateful 10th month was approaching. The 10th month arrived. The period of opening the womb had elapsed. Her face radiated understanding. She covered her head, performed the midwifery. Her waist she girdled, pronounced a blessing. She drew a shape, and the mold was life. The drama of man's creation, it appears, was compounded by a late birth. The mixture of clay and blood was used to induce pregnancy in 14 birth goddesses. But 9 months passed, and the 10th month commenced. The period of opening the womb had elapsed. Understanding what was called for, the mother goddess performed the midwifery. That she engaged in some surgical operation emerges more clearly from a parallel text in spite of its fragmentation and counts the months. The best and 10th month they called, the lady whose hand opens came. She opened the womb. Her face brightened with joy. Her head was covered, made an opening, that which was in the womb came forth.